Good afternoon to everybody. Our today's session is data processing. This is the unit 8. So in our unit 4, 5, 6 and 7, we are discussing about what is research, how to collect the data, what is questionnaire designing, how to collect the data, what is sampling and sampling design. But after that, after collection of data, how to process your data. So this is very important when you analyze your data for your research work. So today's session, what are your learning objectives? Now discuss about the data processing, describe the details of data editing, coding, classification and tabulation, and how to prepare the graph from the data, that is how to analyze your data through the graphical method. So now, first we are discussing about what is data processing. Data processing is the collection and translation of the data set into the valuable, usable information. Through this process, a researcher, data engineer, and data scientist takes raw data and convert it into a more readable format, such as graph, report chart, either manually or through the automated tool. The researchers will take and use this information to again insights, solve the problems, make improvements, and you ultimately generate better results. So our aim is that when you collect the data or after data collection through the various sources, how to solve the your data and how to find out the new result or new investigations. So at that time, what happened? Now, when you collect the data, this data is called the raw data. We have to get the raw data and we have to interpret the data and we have to analyze the data. So this is the process is called data processing. That means again I am discussing about this one. Data processing, data is a raw data. We have to process it. How to process it and how can you find out the result of your investigation, of your research work, and this is called the data processing. So there are various type of process are there. Directly you cannot take the data for the analysis. For that cases, what happened? Now we have to use so many process. One process is data editing, data coding, data classification, and tabulation. After that, you have to analyze your data. So now, what is your data editing? Last classes, last classes also I am discussing that. Directly raw data, we cannot go for the analysis, so we have to edit it. What is the editing? That is, first we have discussed what is the editing. Data editing is a step in the preparation of statistics, the goal of which is to improve the quality of the statistical information. Those information we are collecting from the respondents or from the markets or from the people's various sources. So at that time, what happened? First, you have to prepare this data or raw data
And
to convert it to your analyze of data. So that means what happened? That directly you cannot interpret or take the data as per your questionnaire given to the respondent. So that means what happened? Now suppose that the example is when you are collecting your data from your respondent through the questionnaire. Suppose first one is I am discussing the questionnaire method that is demographic information. In demographic information, what happened? Now we are mentioning that after your name, what is your age or age group? Age group one is 20, one is 40, one is 60. So directly we cannot take these values in the data set. So how what we will do? Now we have to convert it, this data for your coding. Next class is coding. Coding is what happened? Now in that case is what happened? If you are collecting your data that is 10 to age group 10 to 20, so you should put 1. The coding is 1. 1 means your age group, the value is 10 to 20, the groups. Similar 20 to 30, you make it 2. 30 to 40, you make 3. 40 to 50, you make 4. More than 50, you take 5. So this is called editing. Editing means in the basis of code. Code means last time we are writing coding. Coding is what happened? Now it is next classes we have discussing coding. Coding is the process combining the data for themes, idea and categories and then making the similar passage to text with the code level. This is the level of the data. So in here what happened? Now, when we are taking your data, we will edit it. At that time, you have to collect the information that all the data should be same manner or not. If there is no same manner, you have to edit it or you have to manipulate it. Then you have to take your data to the tabulation. So for that cases, what happen? Now before you entry your data in the tabular form, that means editing means what happen? Now when you are enter your data in a tabular form, at that time we have to see that whether your data is right or wrong. Is not right, you have to edit it. Similarly, data have to edit it, especially when they relate to responses to open-ended questions of interview and questionnaire or unstructured observation. When you are taking your what is that is unstructured questionnaire or the open-ended questionnaire, so we are not mentioning any coding or any interval basis because there is no questions at all. So we have to prepare, make a questions, and after that you have to give the code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the numerical. Because when you are analyze your data in your SPSS package or any statistical tools, at that time only they have received or they will machine will take only the numerical values. There is no alphabet, there is no words there. So that's why what happened now before you enter your data to your table, or this is called the Excel format. Table means Excel format. In that cases only you have to put the value on the numerical values, and you have to mention that 1 4 suppose 10 to 20 age group, 2 4 20 to 30 age group, 3 4 30 to 40 age group, 4 4 40 to 50 age group, and 5 is more than 50 age group. So this is editing. So what is the reason? Now for consistency, completeness, uniformity, and accuracy. For these four category or four data, four, this is reason for the data editing. The 4 points are there. One is data consistency should be required, completeness should be required, uniformity, and accuracy. If data is not uniform, we cannot analyze your data. If your data is not complete, you cannot analyze your data. If your data is not consistent, you cannot analyze data. If your data is not accurate, also you cannot analyze your data. So for that cases, what happened? Where you are going for the editing, or what is the reason behind the editing? Now for data consistency, data completeness, data uniformity, and data accuracy. This is very important. Then what is the objective of data editing? To ensure the accuracy of the data. Data accuracy should be required. If data accuracy is not happening, then what problem is that? Now we have lacking or we have facing the problem when you are going for data analysis to using the any statistical techniques or you other techniques also. To establish the consistency of the data. To establish the consistency of data means all the data in the same manner. To determine whether data is complete or not, you have to find out that. To ensure the coherence of aggregated data and to obtain the best possible data available. That means what happened? Now when you are editing your data, you have to find out that all data are available or not. If data are not available, you have to edit it, then you have to interpret it. Similarly, coding is a process combining the data for themes, idea, and categories, and then making similar passages to text with the code level so that they can easily to be retrieved at a later stage for further comparison and analysis. So in here, what happened? Now, when you are coding in your data means I'm given example age group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I were given this coding in your Excel sheets, and at the time you have to put what is for 1, what is for 2, what is for 3, and what is for 4, what is for 5. Accordingly, when you go for the analysis, either you can go for any software or any techniques, immediately they can give the exact result as per your coding. Suppose that now we have collected 200 data from the respondents. So respondents, we have to know that how many data belongs to the age group 10 to 20, how many data belongs to 20 to 30, how many data belongs to more than 50, or how many data belongs to 10 to 20. If you are putting as per the coding, then automatically directly they are giving the what is the data point is given. How many age group given how many data. Suppose 1 to 10 it is given 20, 10 to 20 given 40, 30 to 40 it is given 70. So accordingly they have given the figure or they have given the graph. So as per your requirement, you can find out the graph method or pie chart method. This is the graphical method, representation of data, required method. That's what we are discussing. So accordingly they will give it. Coding the data makes it easier to source the data to make comparison and identify any pattern that requires further investigation. So if your coding is correct, then any type of investigation you can do it, any type of solution you can find out, any type of analysis you can do it. So that's why what happened. Now coding is very, very important. If coding is not in the right manner, then it is difficult to that, because software there what is in software what happened. Now as per your inputs, they are given the outputs. If your input is wrong, output is always 100% wrong. If output is wrong, a solution you cannot find out the solution. So that's why what happened. The coding makes easier to make the further investigation. Coding technique, cross-sectional techniques, non-cross-sectional techniques. These two techniques generally we are using in your software or in your statistical analysis for data analysis. Consistent, some lean across all patterns and themes. Sometimes this is given in your software, or you can say when you analyze your data. So at that time, this wording they are giving there, just you have to click it. And non-personal simply descriptive part, different lenses, descriptiveness, case studies or narratives. What you want to do it. When question is that the coding techniques when you are using, say what exactly you want to do it. So accordingly, you have to give this is the what is person it is given, but this is the activities given in your statistical techniques when you are using the software. Accordingly, you can use this one. It is a cross-sectional technique or it is a non-cross-sectional technique. When you are using this one, you are using for your case study analysis, or you are using for different lenses, or you are using for your patterns, or you are using for your consistent system across all the data. So what you want to do it. So accordingly, you have to coding techniques that is given. And what are the approach of the starting coding? Previous research or theory. Previous research, when you are doing your any research work, at that time you have to find out that what should be your literature review, because when you are doing your research work, first you have to find out that whether your research work is logically accepted or not. Hypothetically it is true or not. When you are doing your research work, always we are taking the null hypothesis. Suppose that this is accepted. So accordingly, what happened? Now, when you are taking your this objective of your research work, always you will go for the previous theory or the previous research. Accordingly, previous research and previous theory, you have to prepare your research objectives and you have to prepare your research hypothesis. And accordingly, the objective hypothesis, you have to prepare your questionnaire. And according to questionnaire, you are going for a data analysis, data collection. So data collection, when you are going for data collection, it should be proper through the questionnaire. Research or evaluation questions you are addressing. Questions and topics of your interview schedule. You got a feeling about the data and the setting. So that means what happens? Now accordingly, when you are going for the coding system or where you are using the coding system of your research work, so at that time, as per the data, you have to go for coding. After data collection, but when you are going for data collection, at that time you have to also make the coding, not the issue is there. Or after data collection, when you are interpreting your data to your Excel sheet, then at that time is coding is essential. So that means what happened? As per the previous research, as per the evaluation of your research work, as per the questions when you are asking to the respondents, everywhere you want to start your coding. Then another part is classification. Classification is very, very important, because if you are not classified accordingly, then there is a problem. Data classification in the context of information security is the classification of data based on its level of sensitivity and the impact of the information should that data be disclosed, altered, or destroyed without authorization. The classification means which type of data is required in which type of analysis. You are classified, because what happened? Now, when you are collecting your data through the questionnaire, so at that time what happened? There are various sections are there. One is demographic profile. One is section wise, section A, section B, section C, and section D. So in this section wise, what happened? Now first you have to find out that the which type of data is required in which type of analysis. If you are analyzing your data for the demographic variables, so you cannot use this data in section A or section B. Demographic variables, what happened? Now you have to find out that how many male and female respondents are answering your questionnaire. So male and female data set, it is available on the demographic profile. This is you cannot the other sections. So that means what happened in here? Suppose you have to find out there how many age group students or how many age group people they are answering our question. So this is a demographic profile. How many investigators or how many respondents are service holder, or how many holders are business holder, or how many persons are respondents are others. So you can find out from the demographic profile. Similarly sex, they are male or female like this, or they are married or unmarried like this. But because income group also income, how many, in which type of income group are given the answer of the your questionnaire. So at the time what happened, now we have to define your questionnaire and you have to define your data. Now when you are going for data analysis, how many male and female they are given answer to your question. That means your data should be only male female. Income source only the income source. Other data you cannot implement in here. The classification of data help determine what baseline security controls are appropriate for safeguarding the data. So that means when you are analyze your data, which data set is required as per your analysis. So for that cases, the classification is required. So what is your objectives of classification of data? To group heterogeneous data under the homogeneous group of common characteristics, to facilitate similarity of various groups, to facilitate effective comparison, to present complex, haphazard, and scattered data of concise, logical, homogeneous, and intelligible form, to maintain clarity and simplicity of the complex data, to identify independent and dependent variables and establish their relationship, to establish a cohesive nature of the diverse data for effective and logical analysis, to make logical and effective quantification. Because in here, what happened? So when we are analyzing your data, so what is the implementation or what is the objective of the classification of data? So when you are going for the analysis of your data after editing and coding, so at that time we have to find out that what is the level of data is given or what type of variable is given. Generally, what happens when you are going for the research work, either you can for educational research or your social research or any research. At that time, always you find out that in the analysis cases, there are two type of variables are there. One is independent variable and another is dependent variable. When you are analyzing your data, dependent variable first you have to find out who are the dependent variables. For example, suppose that. So you have to find out how to develop your quality education in your organization. So at that time, what is your dependent variable? Now develop the quality education. This is dependent variable, independent variable. But how it is dependent? Now dependent of the educational process. What is the educational process? Now quality teaching, quality materials, facilities. What is facilities? Lab facilities or library facilities, and then what is placement facilities. So everything should be there. So these are is called the independent variables. Independent variables is very important to find out the solution where it is required. That means required for the dependent variable. So quality education is depending on the 4 or 5 components or the independent variables. Only one variable you cannot find out the results. So dependent variable is very important you have to find out. For example, I am giving one example. So what will be the next 2 or 3 years demand of our product? Suppose I am the FMCG company. So we are preparing some product. What will be the demand of our product after 2 years or 3 years? So at the time, how will you find out? So you have to use the technique, statistical techniques generally, or time series techniques, or regression analysis we can use, or time series techniques. So many forecasting techniques are available. In the forecasting technique, what happened? Now one is dependent, and other is independent. Variables are there, and dependent variable is what? Now predict the next 2 years demand, and what is the independent variables? After that, in there, what is the independent variables? Now this is the production, the machinery and equipments, the facilities, workplace. So these are called the inputs, or you can say in statistically, these are called the independent variables. And another one is investment is very important part is there. So so according to the independent variables, if you are using this one, then only you can. It is possible that you can find out the next 2 year prediction by the help of time series analysis, or you can say that forecasting techniques, or you can the regression model. So you can use there and you can find out. So for that cases, what happen? Now, independent variable and dependent variable is very, very important. So classification data means which data belongs to independent variable and which data belongs to the dependent variable. You have to calculate. So many education organizations, what happen when you are developing one model for a research work, or you want to find out the new investigation, at that time always you are depending on the two variables. One is independent variables and another one is dependent variables. This is very, very important. Then, to establish a comprehensive nature for the diverse data for effective and logical analysis. Logical analysis means what happens? Now, when you are using your data for your classification, so at that time you have to find out that logically it will be accepted. If logically it is not true, then that means 100% true that you cannot get the right answer, or you cannot do the right analysis of your data. To make logical and effective quantification, and also your data always quantify. This is not qualitative, always the quantitative. So that means what happened? Logically it is, that means what happened? Now when you are doing your research work in any places or anywhere, so at that time when you are select your topics for your research work, at that time you have to find out that whether your topic is right or not, logically it is accepted or not, hypothetically it is true or not. Similarly in here also, when you are taking your data from the respondents, first you have to find out that, classify that, whether data is logically it is accepted or not, or it is quantified or not. Yes or no? Then another part is very, very important. This is called the tabulation. Tabulation means what? After editing, after coding and classification, then you will go for the tabulation. Tabulation means you put your data in your Excel format. Excel format, you open your Excel sheet, Excel sheet 1, 2, various columns is there, and in each column you have to use the each questions and you put it. How can you put it? Suppose question number 1. Question number 1 is, what is the gender? Male or female? So you write gender. Male 1, female 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. When male, you have to put 1. When female, you have to put 2. So accordingly, you have to put, suppose your data is 500. So accordingly, you have to put 1 to 1 to up to 500. You have to use. Similarly, income group. Suppose income group, you are taking the age group from 10 to 20, the coding is 1. 20 to 30, the 2. 30 to 40, this is 3. 40 to 50, this is 4. 50 to 60, this is 5. So accordingly, you have to put in this Excel sheet. If 10 to 20, you put 1. 20 to 30, you put 2. 30 to 40, you put 3. 40 to 50, you put 4. And 50 to above, so you put 5. So accordingly, you have to put the 500 data. So accordingly, for each question, suppose you have the in question there, you have 20 questions. That means your 20 column you have to put it. One is demography section A. Then as per your body of your research work, so you can put the data. Yes or no? So in that cases, what happened? Now only after coding your data, then only you can interpret your data in your tabular form. So tabulation refers to the systematic arrangement of the information in a row and columns. In simple words, tabulation is a layout of figure rectangular form with appropriate heading to expand different rows and different columns. The main purpose of the table to simplify the presentation and facilitate comparison. So when you tabulate your data in the tabular form, then after that graphically you can represent it, or you can go for the analysis for your better solution. This is our purpose. Why we need the tabulation? A tabulation required when you prepare your data for the present or for the presentation. Presentation means in kind of graphical presentation or in term of quantitative analysis. So at that time, easily we can do it. For that cases, after coding and editing of your data and classification of data, then you go for the tabulation to present your data uniformly. Okay. What are type of tabulation? Either simple table, double table, or complex table. There are so many tables are there. One-way tabulation, two-way tabulation, or more than two-way tabulation. So this is depending nature of the data, you have to tabulate it. Row-wise, column-wise, only the row-wise. Some row is more, some column is less. But it is a rectangular form always. Data should be when used. Maybe row is more, maybe row is less. There is no problem. But always data should be used. But when you are going for the tabulation, at times some row-wise there, some column-wise data should be there. Yes or no? So this is required. So one simple and tabulation is what? When the data are tabulated to one characteristic, it is said to be a simple tabulation or one-way tabulation. Only one characteristic, suppose only the gender. Double tabulation, when the data are tabulated according to two characteristics, suppose gender and income, the two characteristics and you put the double. This is a two-way tabulation. If more than data is given, then this is called the complex tabulation. When the data are tabulated according to many characteristics, it's said to be a complex tabulation. So generally when the resource value is there, so according to the characteristics, we have to use the table, either simple table or double table or your complex table. Clear or not? Then we are discussing how to present your data. So after tabulation or after interpretation of the data, the interpretation means what happened? Now first one is editing, then second one is coding, third one is classification, and fourth one tabulation. Then is called the data interpretation. Interpretation in the Excel format. After that, how you have to present it. So after interpretation of the data or how to process your data in the tabular form, then only you will go for the analysis. Analysis in terms of what happened, now two types of analysis we are presentation we are required. One is graphical representation and another is statistical representation. Statistical representation means what happened? Now graphically you have to show your data, you have to present your data, and easily we can understand this one. And another is analysis techniques. If your statistical analysis you are taking, so many techniques are there. Some that is what is parametric test, non-parametric test. So many tests are there. In the basis of test, you can analyze your data. So many process or algorithms are there. You have to use this algorithm or use the techniques, either SPSS or statistical techniques. Some statistical software is there. C-Stat is there. Now, what happened? You can use now in presently the very important data is AI machine learning. Also, you can use there and you can find out the data. But in here, what happened? Now, first we are discussing about the data presentation, how to present it. Then after that, we are discussing about the statistical analysis or any other quantitative analysis. So first one is graphical presentation. A graph refers to the plotting of different values of the variables on a graph paper, which gives the movement or a change in the variable over a period of time. Diagrams can represent or can present the data attractive style, but still there is a method more reliable than this. Diagrams are often used for publicity purposes but are not much used in statistical analysis. Hence, graphic presentation is more effective and result oriented. That means what happened in here? Now, when you collect the data, this is raw data, and if you are present it, suppose given example that, so what is the number of male and female data you are collecting the data. So graphically you have to show it. The male 10, female 20. So if graphically you have to take, graphically it is given that male 20, female 10. So easily you can understand, and this is result oriented. What are the rules and construction of the graph? Every graph must have a suitable title, which should be clearly convey the idea, the graph, intent, the property. When you are graphically you are representation, so what is the construction? What is the rules of construction of the graph we are discussing now? The graph must suit the size of the paper. As per paper, in between the paper, you have to prepare the graph, not outside of the graph papers. The scale of the graph should be in even numbers or in multiples. Footnotes should be given at the bottom of the illustrate the main points about the graph. Graph should be as simple as possible. In order to show many items in the graph, index identification should be given. If you are giving the more graph or more size, later on we are discussing one by one, then you should put the name. A graph should be neat and clean and should be appearing to the eyes. Every graph should be given with a table to ensure whether the data has been presented accurately or not. The test of good graph depends on the case which the observer can interpret it. Thus, the economy in the cost and energy should be exercised during the graph. So, when that means the entire construction of the graph is that now it should be clear, it should be as per the size of the paper, and it should be the footnotes should be given, and it should be simple and possible. It should be simple, and don't go for many items in the graph. If you will give the many items, it should be mentioned the below of the graph. So this is the construction of the graph. That means what happened? Now it will be easily understand by the expert. Yes, so now the checklist. What is the checklist? Now what makes a good graph? So you have to first find out, have you selected the appropriate graph type of the data? you are displaying? Yes or no? You have to question. You are asking the question to you. If yes, it is good. Does your graph have a title? Yes or no? If yes, it's good. If no, so you have to put your titles. Have you placed the independent variable on the x-axis and the dependent variable on the y-axis? Because when you are preparing the graph, there are two axes there. One is y-axis, one is x-axis. So always x-axis is the independent variable and y-axis always the dependent variable as per the xy axis, two axis cases. Because y-axis always the dependent variable and x-axis is always the independent variable, whether you are taking or not. Because after you graphing, prepare the graph, this should be mandatory. If you are not mentioning this one, so we cannot understand what you are taken. Have you labeled the axis correctly and specify the unit measurement? Label of the graph. Label of the graph means axis. It will be correct or not. Suppose that sometime you are taking x-axis to y-axis and y-axis to x-axis. Then it is wrong. Your concept is right, your interpretation is right, but your concept is wrong. Initial concept is wrong because as per the graphical method, always you are taking y is a dependent variable, x is a independent variable. But if you are changing this one, x is dependent variable, y is independent variable, then it is wrong. Does your graph have the proper scale or appropriate high and low value of the axis? Proper scaling you are taking. In x-axis you are giving that 10-point scale, and y-axis if you are taking the 5-point scale, then this is wrong. So the proper axis, that is what is the values. You have to take the both the axis. Is your data plotted correctly and clearly? Yes or no? So first you have to asking this question to you before you prepare your graph. So this is called the checklist, and accordingly you have to prepare the graph. Then type of diagrams. So after you prepare the graph, this is what? This is a diagram. So how can you prepare the diagram? So there are so many diagrams are there. First we are discussing about the bar diagram. Bar diagrams are commonly used to show the number of proportion of nominal or ordinal data which possesses particular attribute. They depict the frequency of each category of the data points as bar rising vertically from the horizontal axis. Bar diagram most often represent the number of observations in the given category, such as the number of people sample falling into the given income or ethnic group. They can be used to show the proportion of the source data point, but the pie chart is more commonly used for this purpose. Bar diagrams are especially good for showing how nominal data change over the time. So that means what happened? Now when you are using the bar diagram, so at that time what happened? Now you have to take the proper data points and the bar diagrams to the vertically. Yes or no? So for example, I am giving for example in here. So there are 4 types of bar diagram. One is simple bar diagram, double bar diagram, divided bar diagram, and multiple bar diagram. So how can you use these data sets and to prepare the diagram? One by one we are discussing. First one is simple bar diagram. Listen in here. The example is given. The classes and the number of students. The classes A is this 22, class IX section B is 26, in section C is 30, and section C is 40 students. Is that number of students? The 40 students, and they are securing the marks. Suppose it is given. Suppose the marks is given, then how can you write? Now your x-axis which one? Your x-axis is section A, section B, section C, section C. Suppose they are securing marks. Now section A 22. Section B average mark suppose securing 22, and section B average mark is 26, section C average mark 30, section D average mark 40. How can you plot the graph? The first graph you could see that the section A, section B, section C. So which one? Now this number section y-axis values 22, 26, 20, 30 and 40. These are the dependent to whom classes. Similarly, you can get class A, the value is 22, class B value is 26, class C value is 30, class D value is 40. So first figure is one type of bar diagram and second one is one type of bar diagram. Both two you can do it, no problem. Section A, this is a one diagram, and this type of diagram is called the simple diagram. This is called the simple bar diagram. For example, next example is that double bar diagram. So we are taking class X A, section A, section B, section C, section D, the girls marks, students marks, and boys student marks. So in here what happened? You take it the girls, how many girls and how many boys? We can make a graph. And how many boys and graphs? A, suppose A is equal to boys, B is equal to graph. It is given. Or these two, what is this is one is what is the sky color one bar, and that is scratch, line, draw a line or angle line is there, and this is another one. So A is what, 10, B is 12. It is given in section A. In section B, similarly we can put in here 26 and 20. Section C we are putting C2, and section D we are putting 16 and 24. So this type of bar is called the double bar diagram. That means two data set is available in this diagram. First one is what happened? Only one data set is given. But in this example, the two data set is given. So for that case, this is called the double bar diagram. Similarly, in example 3, divided bar diagram means we have divided it. After girls, then boys, or after boys, then girls. We are taking in here after boys, after girls, then we are taking boys, because the sky color is girls, then after that this is boys. That means first you take the 10 in girls, then 12 we can take the boys. A total is 22. Similarly, in section B or IXB classes, first we are taking the sky color is 26, girls 26, then we are taking the 20, total is 46. So similarly C and similarly D. So in here what happened, when you are taking this diagram, at time you have to mention that this is footnotes, you can say that, or you have to give that boys means this column, this bar column, and girls means this bar column, this color. So you have to put in here, and this type of diagram is called divided bar diagram. And another one is multiple bar diagram. More than two data is given, then this is called the multiple bar diagram. That means what happened? Now suppose census here is given, person 18 in 1951, 61, 71, 81, 91, 201. Data is given. Person that is male, this is given. Female, this is given. Total person is 18. Male is 27. Female is 9. So in that basis, you have to follow the data. That means if when you are preparing your bar diagram, how many variables is there? 3. One is person, one is male, one is female. So in the accordingly what happened, when you are taking in 1951, so you take thin, one is person, one is male, one is female. First one is person, second one is male, third one is female. Accordingly, 61 we have to do 3, 71 we have to do 3, 81 we have to do 3, 91 we have to do 3, and 2001 also you can take 3. And below we have to take the year, and because year is the y-axis, x is the person, male and female. So in here what happened? In here that is axis is what is now in 1951 we have to find out that what will be the person, what will be the male, and what will be the female. So it will be displayed in 3 bar. First one is person, second one is male, and third one is female. It is given mentioned in y-axis below, census here, person, male and female, it is mentioned. So this type of diagram is called multiple bar diagram. We can take more than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and many. But if you are taking too many, that is very difficult to represent the bar diagram. So that's why as per the visibility you take the values, and this value is this type of figure or this type of value is given. If more than 2 data is given, then this type of diagram is called the multiple bar diagram. Clear or not? Then another one is very, very important. This is called the histograms. Histogram are the preferred method for graphing group interval data. That means this data classification is given. Interval is given 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 10, 20, 20 to 25, and frequency is given. Frequency means what happened? Now interval is 0.5 and frequency is 4. So that means what happened in here, when you are taking the values, class interval and frequency, class interval always lies between your x-axis, and frequency always you are taking in your y-axis. You see that in the graph, first you are taking class interval, which axis? X-axis. And you are taking frequency, which axis? Y-axis. 5. That means the corner point it should be 0. 0 to 5, what is the value? Value is 4. So we have to make a graph in bar, in one bar. Similarly, 5 to 10, what is the value? 10. Make a graph bar. Then 10 to 15, what is the values is 18. This is a bar diagram. This is one bar. Similarly, 15 to 20 is a bar, and 20 to 25 in another bar. Yes or no? So if this one you are representing, then this diagram is called the histogram. Like another example I am giving. Wages and frequency. Say another, this is judgment sampling. This is not exactly, this is a bar diagram. Mistake, we are writing this one. So in here what happened? Now wages is given 50.5 to 60.5, 60.5 to 70.5, 70.5 to 80.5, 80.5 to 90.5, 90.5 to 100.5, and 100.5 to 110.5. So in here what happened? From 0 to 15.5 there is no bar, because the data is not given. Data given from where? Now 15.5 to 60.5. So 50.65 is for make a graph, 60.5 to 70.5 make a graph, 70.5 to 80.5 make a graph, 80.5 to 90.5 make a graph, similarly 90.5 to 100.5, 100.5 to 110.5. So when you are preparing the histogram, at the time what happened? The interval should be same. Yes or no? Or interval should be what happened? Now if one interval should be 50.5 to 60.5, second interval should be starting from 60.5. Yes or no? And fourth one is, suppose 60.5 to 80.5 you are taking, then it should be started from 80.5. Then this type of diagram is called the histogram. Then another one is line graph. Line graph, all of you know that in the axis you are taking the point and adding the each point, make a line. This is called the graph. Line graph uses a single line to connect plotted points of interval and at item nominal data. Suppose biscuits, the 75% demand. Ice cream, suppose 95% demand or likes. Chocolate like 65%. Cold drinks like 95%. Suppose you are going for one survey, from that survey, so you have to find out that what is the liking of the product of our organization. So how can you find out? So you collect the information from the product biscuits, from the product ice cream, from the product chocolate, and from the product cold drinks. So in biscuits, what happened? The 75%. So in this cases, what happened? The variables in the x-axis and percentage we can take in the y-axis. 75% biscuit, 95% ice cream, 75%, 65% chocolate, 94% cold drinks. Make a line from the each point, and this line is called the line graph. Other way also we can do the line graph like this, because data is given. From the data, after that you line graph, because one is a bar diagram, one is line graph. According to the point also you can do it. Suppose product A, product B, product C, month is given, rainfall, the temperature C, rainfall. The rainfall, which month, what should be the rainfall? That rainfall. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So this is the bar diagram also. One is temperature, we can take it, and another one is rainfall, we are taking this one. The temperature one is which one? The bar is taking the temperature, rainfall, and but line graph we are taking the temperature. So this type of also line graph you can also use, you can also do it. Then this is a very important when we are using, when we are doing your research work. So maximally when you are going for the graphical representation, so these three diagrams should be more important. One is bar diagram, one is line graph, and another one is pie chart or pie graph, you can say that. So pie chart are circles subdivided into a number of slices. The area of each represents the relative proportion data points falling into a given category. Pie charts are the preferred method for graphing both nominal data and percentages. Yes or no? So in your pie diagram, what happens? Generally, pie diagram we are calculating with the percentages. How many percentages in which objects? Suppose in here we are taking one is television, one is newspaper, one is yellings. So three products is given, or three type of objectives we are taking. So which one should be what the percentage? Television is how many percentage in here? A television is 45%. Newspaper is how many percent? 40%. Yelling is how many percent? 50%. Because easily you can see the figure and you draw your conclusion. Yes or no? So similarly, whatever this chart, why you are using in your research work, now instantly, immediately, you can find out the solution of your data. Another one is sketched bar diagram. Sketched bar diagram also we are using some cases, not for all cases. Some cases we are using this type of diagrams. So in here, how many variables are there, and how many what is uh, uh, percentage, or you could say percentage, or the numerical values is given. So in here you see that number of students is how many? 33, 35, and 30. Favorite sports ka how many? Na basketball, badminton, and volleyball. How many girls? 16. How many boys? 22. That means so many data in here. One is total number of students, 38, 35, 30. What are the sports? The one is basketball, one is badminton, one is volleyball. So in here, suppose that you see in your basketball. In a basketball, there are two type of data is given. One is 16 girls and 22 boys. So in here total 38. So in here you have to find out the double bar chart or double bar diagram. For basketball, two diagrams are there. For one for boys, one for girls, and another diagram is that. Suppose you have to mix up both two, girls and boys, then this should be total number of students. So in this figure, what happened? Now, three conclusions we can draw. Suppose the first diagram, basketball. First orange color. Orange color means it is representing the girls. And purple color. So it is representing what is the boys. If you are adding these two, representing total number of students. Yes or no? So in this case, what happened? Now 1, 2, and 3, because three type of play or sports name is given. One is basketball, one is badminton, and another one is volleyball. So three balls we can use, and data you are using, data you are using, and directly you can put in your graph. So when you see the graph, from this graph you can easily identify it. Yes, there are three play game. One is basketball, one is badminton, one is volleyball, and girls number of students are that is 16, and boys are this is 22, and total number of students are 38. So immediately you can calculate from the graph without see the tables. Yes or no? So this is very, very important. So multiple data sets it is given. So generally you are using this type of graphs. So case diagram is very, very important also. Yes or no? So in these cases, so listen in here, this bar diagram, and this bar diagram, multiple bar diagram. Histogram generally we are not using more. This diagram, line graph, and pie chart, and sketches bar diagram. These are very, very important for a researchers when you analyze your data. So these are called the graphical representation of the data. Then another one is that when you analyze the statistical analysis. Statistical analysis we are discussing the next class. Just I am giving the overview of statistical analysis. So when you are representing your data in graphical method, then easily we can understand from these data sets. When we are going for analyze your data from your data set in the statistical methods, so at that time what happened? Now first we have to check it whether data is valid for the analysis or not. For that cases, first class I told you that data reliability and validity should be required. If data is not reliable, if the condition is not satisfied, or data is not valid, then we cannot go for statistical analysis. This is number 1 point. Number 2 point, what happened? Now, if your data is not valid, that means again you have to qualify your data. So now question is, which cases we can say that data is reliable? So for that cases, we are using some techniques, reliability analysis or reliability test is there in your SPSS package or SPSS statistical tools and techniques. So we collect the data and use this data from these techniques, and they have to given the solution that if your data set is 50% accepted, that means significance level is 50%. This is 50.50. Then data is eligible for analysis. But data is not good. Data is eligible for analysis. If the value by significance level more than 70 or 70%, data is, if it is more than 90, data is very good. So always try to take when the collect the data should be good or very good, then it will be appropriate for the analysis. Yes or no? Otherwise, it is very difficult to find out the solution. And number two, suppose that in the testing of hypothesis or level of testing or significance test level, which test generally you are using? Now we are generally using the parametric test. T test also we can use to significant level of the significance of the data. In T test we can use how many data is significant, how many data is not significant. So at that time, how can you find out that? Now first you have to take those data we are collecting from the respondent. The data are hypothetical, it is true. And if hypothetically it is true, then you test it. So how can you test it? Now when you test the data as a hypothesis, as per the hypothesis, so at that time always we are taking the two hypotheses. Hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2. What is hypothesis 1? The collected data are significant. The hypothesis 1. Collected data are not significant. Hypothesis 2. So when you are testing your data, always you go for the null hypothesis. Why? The null hypothesis always accepted. If null hypothesis is not accepted, then we will go for the alternative hypothesis. What will be the alternative hypothesis in here? What is given? The data sets are not significant. If data are not significant, that means what happened? Either this is wrong, not significant, or data is not available. Anything is that. That means what happened? If data is rejected, that means you have to go for again for data collection. If you are going for again for data collection, then what will you do? Again same procedure we can take it. Again you go for the data presentation, again editing, again coding, again classification, again tabulation. Then only you can go for the reliability test. Either you can represent your data by graphical method or graphic method, or you can represent your data for the statistical analysis, again same procedure. Yes, this is your number one. So when you analyze your data, so the statistical techniques, so many techniques are available. So many techniques are available. One is statistical analysis, one is multi-dimensional scaling techniques. Yes or no? Sometimes other techniques also there, so you can use this one. So generally in your statistical techniques, what we will do, what we are doing this one in here. Now we are doing some parametric test and some non-parametric test. What is the parametric test? Generally T test and Z test we are using the parametric test, and other techniques are always non-parametric test. Remember this one. The non-parametric, when you are presenting your data or analyze your data after data processing, then there are two types of techniques we are using for the parametric test, and other are non-parametric test. Parametric test was one, T test, Z test. When the some samples was the low sample, small sample cases, less than 30, generally you are using the T test, and more than 30 you are using the Z test. But in statistical, that is SPSS. SPSS means statistical package for social science. In SPSS or when you are testing data, always in the T test, not a Z test is there. And when non-parametric tests are there, so many tests are there. Generally in your topics, chi-square test, then your analysis of variant test, yes or no? Then your factor analysis, cluster analysis, discrimination analysis, and conjoint analysis, and some multi-dimensional scaling techniques also there. Regression analysis, correlation analysis, so many analysis is there. We are using for multi-dimensional scaling techniques also. Structural modeling techniques also we are using for analyze your data. And these data, this when you are analyzing this data, some techniques or rules and some techniques are there. When we are using which techniques and what is the level of significance. So many techniques are there, and next classes we are discussing in details. We are discussing. And after that, your analysis or data, then you have to find out that whether your analysis are right or not. Those data you are taking, those data you are collecting from the respondents, after your data classification, then when you are going for analysis, your analysis is correct or not. How can you find out this correct or not? Now, as per your objectives. What objective says that? Your objective is that our quality education modification should be required. If your analysis is given not required, that means what happened? Your data set may be wrong, or your data collected data from the respondents, it may be invalid. So for that case, what you will do? Now you have to again redesign your questionnaire, redesign of your research work, and you collect your information. After that, again same process, your data processing, same method, again editing, again coding, again classification, again tabulation, and again you have to go for the analysis. Analysis may be do in two cases. Either you can do for the graphical representation, or you can go for the statistical analysis. So this process, this is the data process techniques, and similar procedure you can use anywhere when you're doing your research work. Clear or not? So in your today topics, we are discussing about your data processing, how data should be editing, how data will be coding, how data process classification, what will be the data tabulation. Then after that, how to represent your data through the diagram basis or through the analysis basis. In diagram basis, what happen? Now we have to use so many diagrams, bar diagrams, pie diagrams, line diagrams, so many diagrams are there. And for the statistical techniques cases, we can show your data in the two different techniques we are using, and we have to present it through the quantitative methods. So this is the today topics, and thank you for your study. Thanks all.